Hey you guys, so for this video we're kind of just giving you a little bit of an update of what just happened recently in our lives, and it felt like something we kind of wanted to share with you. I don't know if it's anything that you all have dealt with, but it's related to COVID. Basically, Tabor had a fever, and
a bad fever. 104.
Like, it wasn't quite, it was like inching out to 104, but yeah. Anyways, he had a pretty high fever and was acting very, very lethargic and just really didn't seem like himself. I've never seen him that sick, and it was very worrying.
He would, like, we would say his name and he wouldn't respond to it, and he kind of just like went into a daze.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what the right word would be, comatose. Like, he was just like eyes glazed over, just like
not happy.
Staring.
He was not doing good.
It was pretty bad.
He had literally just gone to his baby well checkup the day before.
Yeah, so I took him to his 9-month checkup the day before, and the doctor checked his ears, checked his throat, checked his nose, like checked everything. He was fine.
Did not actually take his temperature.
No, didn't take his temperature.
Because it was then that night that he first got his fever.
Mm-hmm.
And then that fever lasted all the next day. We were in touch with our pediatrician all day, or the nurses, nurses.
Yeah.
Just like, can we get in for an appointment?
Ultimately,
couldn't get in for appointment.
Ultimately, we described his symptoms, and they would check in like after a couple hours. And when we told them that he was getting very lethargic and not really responding to his name or anything, then our doctor got super worried. We were super worried. So they ultimately, their suggestion was to take him to urgent care because they didn't have any available appointments for the rest of that day. I think this was around like 4 p.m., 4:30.
Yeah. So we did that. We took him to urgent care. I actually took him by myself because like the weird situation, we couldn't go. Well, we didn't want to take Junie either.
Yeah.
So it's just such a crazy time. But I took him to urgent care. I really have not gone out into the world much at all. Like, if any of us have to go out to like run a specific errand, it's usually Corbin, and I stay home with the kids. So
because I'm very since I've been doing it since the beginning, so we very rarely have left our house since March 13th is when we went into strict quarantine. We only leave our house for essentials, or when we are outside, we're out, or when we leave our house, we're outside. So like when we're camping, we're in our RV or outside. We have our own bathroom with us.
Yeah. But it's not like we go out to go shopping. We don't go out to like visit family. We don't go out
Tabor and
for
June,
restaurants or anything.
Tabor and June haven't like hugged their grandparents since March.
Yeah.
Like, that's how,
like, we are hyper like cautious about this.
Because I think a lot of parents out there are in the same boat as us, is like, we have to live with the guilt every single day of, what if my decision today to do something a little, I won't want to say reckless, but just like a little more lax, what if that affects the health of my children? So it's like every single parent out there is having to deal with not just your own health, but the health of your entire family.
Right. And we are definitely privileged in that our work is completely remote. So we have this option to be so isolated. I know that is not a realistic option for a lot of people, and that totally changes it. But for us, it's like we have the control to live this way, and even though it is not easy and it is not fun, like, we can do it. So it's really just up to us on like how self-disciplined we are.
Right. Which
basically
we have been for the most part since the beginning. So after the appointment, after they told us to take him to urgent care, Kelsey and Tabor decided to drive to the urgent care by our house.
So I take Tabor. I'm wearing a mask. I like never really, I don't have to. I don't usually go out, so I don't usually have to wear a mask. So I'm like, it's really, really hot out. I have Tabor, who's really not doing well. I just go into the doors. There's like a sign on the door I didn't even read, which I'll tell you about later. But I didn't even read the sign. I just go in. It's like, it's kind of a culture shock because I haven't really been experiencing it. There's like all the panels for all of the people at the desk. There's like the X's of where you should stand. They were obviously taking their precautions. I'm wearing the mask, but it's like suffocating me a little bit because I'm not used to it. And I'm there talking with her, and she's like, okay, what's the problem? And I'm like, well, he has a really high fever. We couldn't get him into the pediatrician today, so he said we should come here. And then you can kind of see, and I know exactly what she's thinking now, but she was like going on, like you could see the wheels turning in her head of like, wait, you said fever.
Yeah.
Basically, she's like, oh, well, we're not seeing anyone with fevers, but let me double check because I haven't had a baby come in yet. So I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? But then she goes off and asks, and sure enough, she comes back. She says, nope, we cannot see him. You're gonna actually have to go back to your car. There's a number I need you to call so then I can get you scheduled or checked in or something. I don't know what she said exactly, of where you can go with his symptoms. So she is now treating us like Tabor has COVID.
Yeah, which we had just taken him to the doctor the day before. He didn't see anything. Tabor didn't have a cough. The only symptom he had was a fever, which...
Well, and I said that. I was like, he does not have a cough. He just has a fever. Like, he doesn't have a cough.
Yeah, and babies can get fevers for 1,000,001 things. It could be teething. It could be an ear infection. It could be something totally not COVID related. So
I go back to the car. I, like, look... I'm, like, so, like... what is happening right now? Like, I literally was just told, no, we can't see your baby, and I'm just like, don't know where else to go. And she's
which is insane. It makes us feel like we live in a third world country when like a mom and a 9-month-old walks into an urgent care and they say we can't see you, and the baby's obviously in distress, has a high fever.
Yeah, it was really just like shocking. I like look on the sign because she said the number to call was on the door, so
which was their number to talk to them.
Yeah,
right?
It's their number to talk to them, and I think she basically said she would connect us with the actual clinic that is dealing with all of the COVID symptom patients. So now our only option was to take Tabor to the place where everyone with the COVID symptoms are going, and Tabor can't even wear a mask. So if we show up, so like, I don't know how it's set up there, but...
So a lot of people, like, we've talked about this on our Instagram, a lot of people are like, well, he could be COVID positive, and it's like, yes, he could technically be COVID positive, but if he's not COVID positive, which is a very high likely... And we talked to our pediatrician, and the pediatrician said he is not at high risk at all for COVID. Like, that's literally what they told us on the phone. If he wasn't, then his likelihood of contracting COVID by going to a clinic where they're sending all the COVID people is way, way, way higher. And we, as a parent, you don't want to put your baby in more risk than they need to be, obviously. You're trying to do everything you can to protect your child. So just the decision to go to a place where all the COVID people were going did not make sense to us at all, because we don't believe his fever is due to COVID. It's the chances of him having COVID are so slim that both of us were like, we're not going to do that, because then we're going to expose him to the deadly virus.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I kind of like broke down in the car a little bit because it just like felt like I was so alone in this, because...
Well, you were, like, there was
like,
literally
I
nowhere
felt like
to go.
I didn't have any... You know, you think, okay, if I get sick, even if... Because I do think I tend to be the type of person who, like, oh my gosh, the kids are sick, we have to take them to the doctor. I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, let's wait a little bit longer, make sure they don't get better. Like, I'm always like, no, let's just go to the doctor and just check for sure. Yeah, so then to feel like I have nowhere to go, I mean, we could technically, basically what we decided was we were going to watch him. And if it got worse, we thought it was less risky to take him to the ER than to go to...
we had two options. We can take him to a hospital emergency room, where I've been watching the numbers for our state, and usually for our city, about 10 people a day were going to the emergency room that tested positive for COVID, whereas going to this COVID clinic, the positivity rate was much, much, much higher, like in the 30% rates. So I obviously was like, okay, if we have to take them anywhere, let's take them to the emergency room, because that's a less COVID likely scenario. But in doing that and taking your child to the emergency room, there are some circumstances where the child is only with one parent. So obviously Kelsey is breastfeeding. Kelsey would take him. That means I wouldn't be able to see Tabor for an indefinite amount of time. And if he is treated and then they come back, since they have technically been in a high-risk COVID situation, we would have to live separately, and we've already planned this out, whereas me and June would stay in the RV and they would stay in the house, so it would separate our family for 1 to 2 weeks until they were clear of showing any COVID symptoms. So all of these decisions we were having to make in seconds, and we were processing it and going through it, and it just made us realize, like, there are probably a lot of people out there and families out there where your children will get a COVID symptom, but it won't necessarily be COVID, and there's nowhere for us to go.
Yeah, that's kind of why we wanted to make this video, because this was so eye-opening and so shocking for me, because I just had no idea it was set up this way, and I don't know if this is only specific to just like our area.
It's different by state. That's what I'm learning from people messaging, like doctors have messaged me on Instagram, and it's very different per state. We live in a conservative Republican state.
Our county is
not. Our city is Democratic, but it's just, I think the majority of the regulations are coming from the governors of the state, and it's just, I don't think people have, like, I never even thought about this. This was so eye-opening for us, is like seeing where to send a baby that has a fever when babies are so commonly get fevers. I just don't think people have thought out, like, it's probably not the smartest to send a baby that can't wear a mask into a room of COVID susceptible people and people with COVID symptoms. I just don't think it's fully been thought out. And some doctors messaged and said their urgent cares, half of it is COVID, half of it is standard. So that way it's like they don't have to turn people away, because that's just like, it just reminds me of a third world country. Like, if you're going into an urgent care and you're turned away, it's just like, it's shocking.
Right. So basically the whole system is like based on, called these clean clinics. So, and I don't know if like all of them are clean clinics, but we didn't really look exactly into that. But the way she presented it, it made it sound like there was a specific place for all COVID symptom patients to go to. But clean clinics, meaning like they're not seeing anyone with any COVID symptoms.
Didn't she say it was a respiratory?
It was like a respiratory.
Yeah,
place.
Which he didn't have a cough or nasal congestion or anything respiratory.
No. So it's just like really, really, really eye-opening, and I don't know. We're definitely going to be calling our pediatrician to just like talk about, okay, this is what happened. We need to know, like, in the future what's gonna happen. Like, winter is coming.
Yeah.
Literally, winter is coming. Like, cold and flu season is coming.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have this be my only option.
Right.
So, like,
and I think this is should be a warning to all of the parents out there that have children. Like, make a plan for not if you get COVID, but even if you get a fever
this
or
isn't even
cough.
about like getting COVID.
Right.
That's not even what this is about. This is the fact that because of COVID, because of the living situation and the pandemic that we are all dealing with, it's affecting all of healthcare and putting like the risks much, much higher. Like, if your kids do get sick with like the flu, what your options are going to be might not be what you're expecting.
Right. And you might be turned away from places, and you might have to go to places where the coronavirus, you are more likely to pick up the coronavirus, which you're going to have to weigh your options of, okay, do I go to this place where they're sending all the coronavirus patients? If I don't think it's COVID, do I think it's the flu? You know, so I guess our message is just for the parents out there, make a plan for if your kids develop
any sickness,
any sickness
that
or symptom
you want to see like a medical provider for.
Because the COVID symptoms is like covers so many things.
The list was very long. Like
cough,
on the door,
fever.
It was chills, cough, fever, like all the typical flu and cold symptoms are also COVID symptoms.
Technically, those could be allergy symptoms, you guys. So
it's just, I don't know. I wish I had known that this was going to happen because it was just so shocking for me.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make a video in case it happens to be set up the same way in your town.
Yeah. So. Tabor's fever is getting a little better.
He's definitely been more himself today. He still had a fever. It didn't go up quite as high. We have been, dosing him with both Tylenol and Motrin because that's what our pediatrician suggested we do, alternating, obviously. But yeah, he does seem to be getting better. We have no idea what it is that he got sick with because we have been so isolated.
It could be teething. It could be anything,
Yeah, it seems like a high fever for teething. That's originally what we thought it was. It was just teething, but then the fever just seemed too high.
It could be an ear infection. It could be something that's not even like sickness related.
Yeah,
so,
we don't know. But he does seem to be getting better, so we're just going to keep an eye on him still and see what happens.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope this video helps some of you guys out there. We're
not trying to scare you.
No, it's just to give...
It's nice to be informed before you deal with it in the moment.
Right. So thank you guys so much for the love you guys have been sending us on Instagram for Tabor. And we'll see you in our next video.
Be right, feeder.